Climate madness. A few years ago, cataclysms occurring on Earth could have been called nature's whims. But today, natural disasters are becoming a real craze. China. The flooding that has occurred in China looks more like the beginning of a global deluge. Having passed through the Philippines and Taiwan and leaving significant destruction and dozens of casualties behind, Typhoon Doksuri struck China's Fujian province on July 28, 2023. Here, it affected the lives of about 1.5 million people. A number of cities received record precipitation amount in 24 hours. More than 400,000 people were evacuated and relocated. The merciless disaster destroyed hundreds of houses. The damage caused amounted to over $425 million, or more than 3 billion yuan. Typhoon Doksuri is one of the strongest storms to hit China in recent years. In total, at least 30 people lost their lives in Hebei and Fujian provinces due to the impact of the disaster. Continuous downpours turned Beijing into a disaster zone. The water levels and velocity were so high that they easily swept away cars, bus stops and even concrete bridges. Just take a look at this footage of the power of the climate Cerberus. Mangled cars scattered everywhere, giving the impression that someone chewed them up and then just spat them out. The historic rains that fell in the capital city resulted in the loss of life and the evacuation of more than 50,000 people. This is an extreme rainstorm event. The amount of precipitation that fell in a few days in Beijing was a record for the last 140 years. India. At the same time, equally insane floods occurred in India. By the end of July, floodwaters had claimed the lives of over 20 people. On July 28, over 649 millimeters of precipitation fell in Telangana's Mulugu district. This extreme value was observed this season for the first time. Japan. Electricity and water outages and food shortages are among the problems the residents of Japan have had to deal with as a result of Typhoon Haiyan sweeping. It struck Okinawa Prefecture on August 2nd. According to CNN Weather, more than a month's worth of precipitation fell in 24 hours. Wind speeds at the epicenter reached 120 miles per hour. According to locals, they have had typhoon damage before, but this case has more significant consequences. The typhoon seriously impacted the prefecture's economic activities due to a prolonged power outage. Logistics came to a halt and many grocery stores ended up empty. In general, the wandering Typhoon Haiyan has struck Okinawa several times, claiming human lives. Slovenia. During this time in Europe, on the night of August 3rd to 4th, a natural disaster struck Slovenia. In some places, about a month's norm of precipitation fell within a day. Strong floods inundated 2/3 of the country's territory. The disaster caused huge damage to road, energy and residential infrastructure. We can already say that this is a record flood, the country's prime minister said. The scale is catastrophic. We are asking for all possible help, he said. From the end of July to the beginning of August 2023, powerful cataclysms wreaked havoc in other countries as well. In Russia, the disaster raged almost continuously in different regions of the country. On July 29th, a hurricane that swept across the Volga region claimed the lives of 11 people. On July 31st, a devastating tornado struck the residents of the village of Tubanskoye in Bashkiria. In early August, a thunderstorm downpour caused a flood in the streets of Moscow and Ijevsk, and hail the size of a large apple fell in Krasnodar Krai, damaging more than 200 houses. On August 4th, the amount of hail that fell shocked and caused a lot of trouble for the residents of Germany. A few days earlier, severe storms, including hail, had struck Italy and Hungary. Hurricanes, floods and deadly landslides struck Georgia, Vietnam, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates and the United States. It's worth noting that climate madness is not news to scientists. They have long been warning of its anomalies, which will only increase further. Not long ago, the United Nations organization warned that the next 5 years will be the hottest in the history of observations. The planet is entering a cycle of cataclysms, which will be accompanied by even more devastating disasters and strong volcanic and seismic activity. Scientists have spoken openly about what awaits us in the coming years at international forums in order to warn humanity of the terrible threat that is coming, as well as to offer possible options for our survival and solutions to the climate crisis. While we still have this opportunity,